louder, Reed, in case they want more.
Good afternoon. It is 4:30 p.m. on Tuesday, January 18th, 2022. We'll call the City Council meeting of the City of New Ulm to order. Item number 1, consent agenda. Councilors, what are your wishes?
I'll offer a motion to approve.
Second.
We do have a motion and a second. Any more discussion?
Yeah, I'd like to just maybe finance talk about the overview here about the 2020 sales tax and all that was related. Maybe just
I mean, the sales tax is still on pace. We're making records every month. I'm sure that has something to do with inflation and the higher prices. The online sales, of course, continue to be strong, so that really supports that. I know there's an increase in lodging tax, and the building permits had a record year. Beyond that, I don't know if you have more specific questions or.
Sure. It just says here in our overview, however, in 2020, local businesses were greatly affected by COVID, which is reflected in the 54% decrease in the local sales tax. And then when, just for the public knows when we're going to get the 2020.
That usually comes out like May.
May.
Before I can get the results for the previous
Okay.
year in total from the Department of Revenue.
Okay. I just wanted,
But yeah, the local tax did go down considerably in 2020.
2020 here
Remember
is
which
what
years
we're,
are on there. But it was made up for in online sales, so it didn't hurt the city's collection.
Okay.
But you can see where the local businesses really suffered.
as a presence.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Any more discussion? Those in favor signal by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? That motion's carried. Item number 2.1, lawful gambling permit for Brown County Pheasants Forever.
Motion to approve the issuance of a lawful gambling permit for Brown County Pheasants Forever to conduct public raffles gambling at the New Ulm Event Center, 301 20th South Street, New Ulm, on Saturday, March 19th, 2022.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion's carried.
Excuse me.
Item number 2.2, Raffles gambling permit for Cathedral of the Holy Trinity.
I'll make a motion to approve the issuance of a lawful gambling permit for the Cathedral of the Holy Trinity to conduct raffles gambling at the Cathedral of the Holy Trinity, 605 North State Street on Friday, April 8th, 2022.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion's carried. Item number 3.1, reports from councilors. Summary of business conducted during board and commission meetings. Les usually goes first, so I don't know if anyone has something they'd like to share.
I was unable to attend the Park and Rec meeting, but we'll get that information later. There was no HPC, and tomorrow our mayor attends the CVB, is now the representative.
Wonderful. Any other updates?
Planning Commission, we're going to have a work session tomorrow afternoon at 4 p.m. in the PUC conference room, and we'll be going over our future zoning map, which we'll be presenting at a later date to the council.
I have nothing new to report.
I do.
All right,
I
Mayor.
spoke to the Cub Scouts last night, and they are of the opinion that the mayor is the boss of New Ulm. So I gave them all a medal. It was fun talking to the young guys.
Well, that's good. Good. Thank you for those updates. Item number 4.1, German Park Veterans Square modifications.
Hello there, President Betker and councilors. Tom Schmitz from the Park and Recreation Department. You have before you the information in the packet. What I'd like to reiterate is that after your authorization on August 3rd, staff, the consultant firm of Bolton and Mink, and the enthusiasts worked together to create the construction documents for the site. And in reviewing that, we also conducted a complete topographical survey of the site around the flagpole. So the design has the panels paralleling sidewalks along, there's kind of a square or a rectangle space. So imagine the panels paralleling the sidewalk, adjacent to the sidewalk. So viewing side A of the panel would be done from the sidewalk. To get around to the rear and view the rear of the panels, there would be new sidewalk created to get around the panels to view the rear of the panels. But after the survey, we realized that there is much more topography there than we initially imagined. And so we would have to be removing the existing sidewalk where the panels are to go and create new accessible sidewalk with ramps and platforms to get around. So then what we did is we went to a different site on the New Ulm North of that kind of amphitheater area where the 1862 Dakota Monument is, and we surveyed that site and found similar topographical concerns there. More topography and slope than the naked eye can see. So then we finally went to a third site, which you have before you, what we're calling the Third North Tree Site. And realized that the topography there was conducive, so that none of the existing sidewalk needs to be removed for accessibility. And you have in the packet the site plan and basically the layout of what both the Monuments and Cemeteries Commission and the Park and Recreation Commission have approved, along with, of course, the donor and staff. So this view would be looking towards the water treatment plant, towards Third North, with the phase one is just the two Vietnam War panels, these two depicted right here. And then additional panels would go along this existing sidewalk out towards Third North. The second plan layout here shows you phase one, which is just this area in red. And the existing sidewalk would all remain. A new sidewalk to come in here to view accessibly the rear of the two panels, the first two panels in phase one. And then in the packet, you also have the photos. So as the packet denotes, there's three requested changes or modifications to what you've already authorized. And that includes allowing Veteran Square to be designated in this Third North Tree area as opposed to where you had designated it towards the New Ulm South where the existing flagpole is. And then also to authorize both of the two Vietnam War panels to be two-sided. In the August authorization, only one panel was authorized to be two-sided. The other panel was authorized to be one-sided. And then finally, the height to be modified from what you authorized in August up to 72 inches. So those are the three requests that have been approved unanimously or recommended unanimously by the Park and Recreation Commission and by a 4-to-1 vote in favor by the Monuments and Cemeteries Commission recently.
Thank you. Counselors, have you had a chance to review the information on the packets?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Are there any questions?
One minor question I've got, it just caught my attention. I realized the city had to set up the account to accept the donation, and pay expenses related to Veteran Square now and in the future. Am I seeing that now this is going to be a budgetary item? I just want to make sure that this money is going to cover, okay.
Would have set up,
It's
would have been
strictly
a restricted
donation.
cash for
Gotcha.
donations, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Schmitz.
I guess I still have a few questions, I guess, because people in the community are still, I've had, both sides you hear, the stories of everything, but, I think there's one of the unquestioned that wasn't really out there for the community that some citizens have asked is this, why this location, why the park here, And when we were gonna once have a task force with the mayor, was gonna look at alternative locations, we just reverted back to German Park only. And it was that said. So is it just that the donor wanted to just be in German Park only and not look at any other location within the community? And I'm just stating this because the individuals reached out to me. And I'm just, in
Certainly.
those capacities.
President Bedker, Councilor Mack, councilors, the task force that was established by you had one meeting, and at that meeting, they unanimously recommended moving forward with German Park. So that's even another municipal group that has recommended that. So, the location has kind of always been focused at German Park. And as the packet also points out, this third north site moves it away from the special event site of the amphitheater for weddings and concerts and special events. It provides a more solemn area where the existing shade trees are. And I think is a more appropriate location in German Park than basically at the base of the amphitheater, which is where the flagpole is now.
Okay. Thank you.
My comment is going to be, again, I sit on the Park and Rec Commission that went by the Cemetery and Monuments Commission. This time they had all the information they needed. There were no questions. I happened to attend the Cemetery and Monuments Commission meeting. I had an HPC meeting following that, listened to their arguments. That wound up 4-1. And one thing I want to bring to attention, I'm probably the only one that got it, the Park and Rec packet. Doc Ann Vogel provided that to the Park and Rec Commission, the history of German Park. She did do an excellent job. They also took that into consideration. What I heard from people now, they actually like this location better than the original one we approved. It's in the public eye, but it's not in the public eye when you're attending a wedding, a concert. Your eyes aren't, boom, focused on that part. I'm all right with it, the changes.
And I would concur with Dave, stating that it's better location than being near the amphitheater in those capacities also and stuff. Some citizens are still concerned about how many monuments will end up in that square potentially. And is that going to come back to Cemetery Commission, Park and Rec Commission, Council again for more? Or once we designate this tonight, if donations come in, other monuments will just be placed?
Monuments and all donations come before the city through the process of the various boards, commissions, and ultimately the council. So as you see in the photo, there is significant more real estate available to honor and interpret our veterans and our veteran service from this location out to 3rd North Street. And its proximity to the playground provides an opportunity to educate youth and to provide an opportunity for children to learn about veterans and veteran service.
No, my only comment is, I approve of it. I like this move. I like this change. It is less in your face, but it's still in a place so that the donors' intentions are for that, to educate the youth. They want it in a place that kids will see, and kids will ask questions. And moving it to here is a more fiscally responsible, financially responsible place, and the groundwork's laid to add on in the future if there is a desired request. So I guess with that, I'll make a motion to authorize the following modifications to the Veterans Square in German Park. Location to be changed from the flagpole area on 3rd North Street to the tree area. Both Vietnam War panels to be 2-sided, and the height of the 2 Vietnam War panels to be 72 inches.
Second.
So we do have a motion and a second. Any more discussion?
I think for future, if we get donations, within the community, do we need to have maybe a task force or the staff review it a little bit, that we try to work with donors and stuff? Because I don't realize it's just one location or,
I think that's what we did. My comment is that there was an idea presented and that we more than went through the proper processes and proper channels, engaging the public, creating a task force, going through the Park and Rec Commission multiple times, being presented to council, being presented to the Monument Commission. I believe that we have done everything that we can do to go through the process, and in the future, you know, if there is a need for a task force, but I am not for creating task force just to create task force. We're elected, we have committees and commissions, and the public has the right to attend these meetings and be engaged in these processes during those times. That is my comment. Thank you. Any more discussion? Those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you, Mr. Schmitz.
Thank you very much.
Item number 4.2, 2021 to 2023 ash removal from public rights of way.
Good evening, Council President, Councilors, John Isley, Planner with the city. This item is to award the contract for the 2021-2023 ash tree removal from the public rights-of-way by the company named Tree Story in the base bid amount of $210 per tree for a total removal cost of $66,150. As you all are aware, we were awarded another grant from the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources. That was a total of $100,000. That is to both remove ash and to replant each one that we are removing. So the first part in that process was to let bids for the removal. That way we can determine how many trees we can remove and then therefore replant. We did only receive one bid for the removal, and again, that was from Tree Story. That is a company out of Dassel. I do know that other local contractors were aware of it. We did have 2 phone calls in the office asking who was awarded the bid from a couple of local contractors, and we informed him of that amount and who received the bid. So the next step would be to let bids for the replanting of the trees. Once those bids come out, we'll work with this contractor to narrow down the number of trees that will ultimately be removed, since for each one that we take down, we have to replant.
Thank you, Mr. Nisley. I noticed the price on the tree removal, and I guess my questions were answered reading through the packet, that is the right price, because it just seems like a very good price for those. I just didn't realize we had that many trees, I guess. I mean, that's great, but.
John, where were we last year when we did this for the bidding process? What was the cost approximately per tree?
It was,
So it was
I would call it an anomaly, but we were at $65 a tree.
Okay. Yeah,
Contractor is since retired and didn't bid on this project.
How many trees can they get in a year, John?
This company, when we opened a bid, said they will do all of this work in 1 week.
Wow, whoa.
And this covers like the removal, like everything, pulling out the stumps and everything too?
No.
No.
The stump grinding is our city's in-kind contribution, part of our city's in-kind contribution
Okay.
towards the grant match. But what they will do is they will cut down the tree, they will limb up the tree. All of the smaller diameter, 12 inches or less diameter, will get chipped on site, and then the large trunks will be brought to the compost along with the chips.
Okay.
John, do we have a time frame on this, once it's approved tonight?
So this, the one caveat with this contractor is they want to do all of the work next fall. So this fall of '22.
Okay.
So that means we have to work with whoever is going to get the bid for planting, that all of their planting has to be in the spring of 2023.
Thank you.
So when you say fall, is there like November, December,
Starting October.
October? Okay. I've got no more further questions, so I'll offer a motion to award the 2021-2023 ash tree removal from public rights-of-way to the Tree Story in the base bid amount of $210 per tree, removing totaling $66,150.
Second.
We do have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Those in favor signal by saying aye. Opposed? That motion carries. Item number 4.3, new zoning ordinance. Oh, we are going to move item number 4.3 to the end. Item number 5.1, new business, appointment to Economic Development Authority.
Terry, presented by Terry, all right.
There you go, Mayor. You're on.
Heather Briegel, who is in charge of the EDA, came to me with this person, Nicole Black, with her qualifications. She's got, I think she has a master's degree in something, I don't remember offhand, but she seemed eminently qualified and quite eager to be this. This person is the title is resident board member, which means they actually live in one of our public housing places, and they will sit with the EDA, can only vote on certain issues, but I think that Nicole will make a good addition to the group.
Thank you. And then just because we have not had one in a while, Nicole or Chris, can you just mention a little bit more about what they do, that we haven't had one, and why this is new? Well, seems new.
Yeah, there hasn't been a tenant in our housing properties that has wanted to be part of the EDA, and with COVID and everything, we didn't want to go out and try and find a resident board member. But this year, Heather reached out, put it out in the housing units that we do own, and we actually got a couple candidates in, and Nicole was probably the most qualified out of all the candidates that did apply or expressed interest in being a resident board member. As the mayor had mentioned, they will be only able to vote on housing issues. They won't be able to vote on any of the Economic Development Authority side of anything, so it'd just be the housing issues.
Excellent. Thank you.
I'll make the motion to approve the appointment of Nicole Black to the Economic Development Authority as a resident board member for the term ending December 31st, 2025.
Second.
We do have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion's carried. And she will be appointed on the next EDA meeting?
Yep.
Great, thank you. Item number 5.2, an appointment to the Sister Cities Commission.
I'll offer a motion to approve Keith Roloff to the Sister Cities Commission to serve a 3-year term ending December 31st, 2024.
Second.
We do have a motion and a second. Any more discussion?
I'll add that Keith is in charge of the plant watering program. And I met him last week at a gathering that we had. Just seems like a great guy, and he'll do super at this.
Great, thank you, Terry. Those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That motion's carried. Welcome, Keith. Item number 5.3, to renew the terms of the collective bargaining agreement with LELS.
Council President, councilors, before you have the new contract that was tentatively agreed on by LELS. I'll kind of go over some of the highlights. They did agree to a 3-year term for 22, 23, and 24. They did agree to implement the class and comp study as approved by City Council. The annual wage adjustments that they agreed to were 2.5 for 22, 2.75 for 23, and 2.75 for 24. They did increase their sick severance benefit payout, which was presented to the council at the work study session and that you had approved. One thing that they did ask for was a lump sum COVID hazard pay bonus of $500, and that would be paid within 30 days of the implementation of this agreement. And then we did increase their deferred comp from 25% of the first 1,800 to 25% of the first 2,500.
Thank you. Nicole, do you have anything to add? Will the $500 change anything budget-wise?
No, in fact, it can come from the ARP funds if we choose to use those for that.
That was my question.
Perfect. And then just looking at the annual wage adjustments, based of what I've researched for this, it is in line.
I agree. I'll motion to approve the city manager's recommendation to adopt the renewal terms of collective bargaining agreement with the Law Enforcement Labor Services Local 150 for the period beginning January 1, 2022 and expiring on December 31st, 2024.
Second.
We do have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Those in favor signal by saying aye.
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 Opposed? That motion is carried. Item number 5.4, amendment number 1 to the Minnesota Municipal Gas Agency Agreement.
Good afternoon. Chris Manderfeld. I'm the Utility Director for the New Ulm Public Utilities. In 2007, the New Ulm Public Utilities joined, or actually worked with several other cities, municipal cities, to create the Minnesota Municipal Gas Agency. And the purpose of this agency was to be able to help municipal gas utilities around the state. One of the main purposes was we wanted to try to get a prepay gas transaction done. If you remember, in 2008, the market crashed, and we weren't able to, we almost were there, we were not able to do a prepay gas. With everything that's happening right now with the economy, with tax exempt bonds and non-tax exempt bonds, we're looking at potentially doing one of these transactions at the end of beginning of February. And so with the legislature this year, one of the changes that they made was with gas agencies, they now are allowing in a prepay transaction that electric purchases can be part of that transaction. And what that means is, for example, and it's mainly for, there's several other entities that are in this prepaid transaction with New Ulm, Austin's in it, Owatonna, but there's some large generators that are in this transaction. And with climate control and climate change and everything going on, we don't know, this is a 30-year contract, and so we don't know what's going to happen going out 30 years. So one of the things that the legislature has allowed the gas agencies to do is, if for some reason a generator was no longer able to burn natural gas, they could turn the natural gas discount to an electric discount. And so that's what's happened. So with that being done, we had to change the gas agency agreement to include the ability to purchase electric energy on that. And so that's what this is doing. Our bylaws, MMGA's bylaws, require City Council and PUC Commission to approve this. When the city once the city approves this is going to go to the PUC Commission next week. They will also approve this amendment, as well as a natural gas purchase agreement with MMGA. So if you have any questions, I can.
So ideally, this is to give the cities some flexibility so would you get to choose, or how does that?
No, we don't necessarily get to choose. It would have to be some event that caused.
Okay.
The chance that that this would affect New Ulm is probably relatively remote.
Mm-hmm.
The way that I would see it is, if some ruling came down that citizens could no longer use natural gas to heat their homes, we would have the opportunity then to turn around and use the discount to pay for electricity. That's probably not going to happen here, but it could happen to some of the generators that are also in this prepaid transaction.
Sure. Okay. Thank you.
Chris, how many years more do we have on this agreement? Does this go out to, or continuously?
It's continuous.
Just continuously?
I'm actually on the board for the MMGA. It's the Minnesota Municipal Gas Agency. I'm on the board for that. The idea is to get this prepay up and running. There could potentially be some additional prepays that happen in the future. Minnesota tends to be a good state to do this in with their taxing authority. And so I could see potentially more of these transactions happening in the future.
And does it require a prepay, or just give us the option to prepay?
Gives us the option to prepay. However, in looking at basically, the way that New Ulm will get the discount, and what happens is we get a discount on the purchase of our natural gas. So we'll put so much of our load into this transaction, and we'll get a discount. The discount is arrived between the difference between the tax exempt bonding and non-tax exempt bonding. Right now, some of those prepays, we're seeing 30 to 37 cents per MMBTU. So it's a good way to save money on our natural gas.
Thank you.
Well, I'll offer the resolution, waive the reading, approve the amendment number 1 to the Minnesota Municipal Gas Agency Agreement.
We do have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Director Jorgensen, please call the roll.
Counselor Mack,
Yes.
Counselor Christian,
Yes.
Counselor Warmka,
Yes.
and President Becker.
Yes, motion's carried. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Item number 5.5, ordinance number 2022-048, fifth series, first consideration, Park and Rec Commission.
Council President, councilors, before you have the first consideration of redoing the ordinance for the Park and Recs Commission and that would be taking it down from 9 members to 7 members. That would not be eliminating any current members. There are currently 2 vacancies, so we would just be eliminating those vacant spots.
So, Chris, we still need to conduct the first consideration of ordinance number 2022-048, fifth series, amending section 3.22 of the City Code of the City of New Ulm relative to Park and Rec Commission.
Second.
We do have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Those in favor signal by saying aye.
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 Opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you. Item number 5.6, performance measurement citizen survey for 2021 services.
I know. This is the performance measurement survey that we do every year. So we're just asking for permission to participate in the survey or discontinue it this year. This is an annual thing that we do. I think it's a good measure of how we do the year before, and then we get a lot of good feedback.
I know we do it every year. Chris, do you have anything maybe to report back to maybe for futurely of what we took from last year's data that we may have improved upon? Could you bring that to
We usually bring that back. I don't think we did it. Did we do it in 2020?
Yeah.
We brought the
Yeah, we
survey
brought the-
results back.
Yeah, so when we get the survey, we always
Yeah,
bring
we
those
brought
back.
the results back, but anything that staff may have took into consideration or improved upon or looked for changes in 2021 for 2022? Were there any goals or that we?
No, we were dealing with COVID, so COVID took up most of our time. And for the most part, when we look at the survey, it's a lot of, snow plowing issues, and we try our best every year. Some years we do better than others. But when there's something major in the survey, which I haven't seen too much of looking through those comments, we do take that into consideration. But when most of it's, hey, snow plowing or street conditions, they do the streets every year. They do crack and sealing, and Joe does a really good job with the CIP and looking at what streets we have to, do, and then throughout the year, we take field complaints if there's potholes or something that we need to take care of. We take care of it, but year over year, it's kind of the same thing with snow plowing being the major issue.
Have we ever looked at doing something digital with this instead of the direct mailing campaign?
I don't know if we have that option. It's a
No?
program.
Through the state.
Yeah, through the state, and we do receive funds from the state to cover the cost of it,
Gotcha.
so.
And it goes out with
Curious.
the utility bills?
No, it goes
No,
out
those are
separately.
direct
It's a separate
mails.
mailing.
Direct
Separate
mail
mailing?
to.
Okay.
They don't do like a Survey Monkey or anything like
No,
that?
I know it's direct mail to a random, was it 375?
Yeah,
people or so many per
375,
ward, yeah.
375 per ward.
So always nice to get feedback, so I'll make a motion to direct staff to proceed with a performance measure citizen survey that measures the satisfaction levels of the city and PUC departmental services for the year 2021 and comply with the Office of the State Auditor collection and reporting rules set forth in the MS 6.91.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That motion's carried. Item number 5.7, B&L Bar Alley Closure, Bach Fest Celebration.
I'll offer the resolution and waive the reading to temporarily close the alley next to the establishment and authorize the extension of the B&L Bar liquor license into the closed alley area on the requested dates to allow alcohol to be consumed. Pre-Bach Fest party Thursday, January 20th, 2022, 4 to 10 p.m. to allow shells to use a fire ring with cold poke beer for patrons. And Bach Fest celebration on Friday, March 4th, 2022, beginning at 5 p.m. to Sunday, March 6th, 2022 at 10 a.m.
Second.
We do have a motion and a second. Any more discussion?
I got one question. You got to get my memory back. Did we authorize that last year, the fire ring?
I don't think they had the fire ring, did they?
They didn't have Bach Fest last year.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
I
don't.
On the firing before, I don't think they did it.
for.
All right, I can't remember.
Lots of
But
cheers.
Chief Mako does go out to inspect because
That
there
was
are
my next
gas lines and
question.
everything. So that will be in compliant with
right.
Chief Mako going out.
Perfect.
We have a motion and a second. Any additional discussion? Director Jorgensen, please call the roll.
Counselor Mack?
Yes.
Counselor Christian?
Yes.
Counselor Warmka?
Yes.
And President Becker?
Yes, motion's carried. Item number 5.8, Naran of New Ulm Fashing Decorations.
Offer the resolution, waive the reading to authorize the Naran of New Ulm to hang colorless strips of decorative cloth representing Fashing decorations on Minnesota Street from the south side of Center to 2nd North Street and hang colorful strips of cloth on lampposts from Center Street to 3rd North in observance of the season of Fashing beginning Sunday, February 20, 2022, with a removal on Sunday, March 6, 2022.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any more discussion?
There actually won't be a Fashing this year. It's an event that was ran by the Concord Singers, and they said due to declining attendance, they were not going to do that. But the Narn are keeping up certain traditions in spite of that.
Wonderful.
That's actually really good to know. I did not know that. So, but it's nice to see those. So, motion and a second. Any more discussion? Director Jorgensen, please call the roll.
Counselor Mack?
Yes.
Counselor Christian?
Yes.
Counselor Warmka? And President Becker?
Yes, that motion's carried. Item number 5.9, Minnesota Department of Public Safety, Office of Justice Programs Grant. Chief?
President Betker, members of the council, my name is Dave Borkert. I'm the Chief of Police for the City of New Ulm. In front of you, you'll see a Office of Justice grant, essentially from the state of Minnesota for $300,000. It's for a 2-year grant cycle. And basically, just a little bit of background, as I had explained, it supports our drug task force, our DTF, and also our ERU, our emergency response unit, for a 4-county area. Brown, Lyon, Redwood, and Renville counties are involved in this. The reason that we're handling this as far as the grant is that we're the fiscal agent. So if there's any questions or anything, I'll certainly try to answer.
It's actually 30,000 more than we've gotten in the past, right?
Correct. It was increased. This essentially came from the burn grant, but years ago. But it seems like it's always a little bit of diminishing returns each grant cycle. This time it actually increased a little bit, which was good news for us.
Thank you.
I've got no other questions. I'll offer the resolution, waive the reading to accept the grant from Minnesota Department of Public Safety Office of Justice Programs for $300,000 for 2 years from January 1, 2022 through December 31, 2023 in support of violent crimes enforcement teams, and authorize the city manager and police chief to sign the agreement on behalf of the city council, or city of New Ulm, excuse me.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Director Jorgensen, please call the roll.
Counselor Mack?
Yes.
Counselor Christian?
Yes.
Counselor Warmka?
Yes.
President Becker?
Yes, that motion's carried. Item number 5.10, New Ulm Police Department policies.
President Betker, members of the council, in front of you, you'll see several policies, and this is part of, we're basically updating all of our policies within the New Ulm Police Department. All of these we tried to make them a little bit more manageable, so we kind of cut that in half from what you saw last time. All of these policies, we've had the opportunity of sending them to the city attorney. Assistant City Attorney Roger Hippert's reviewed them, approved them, felt that they were well-written and certainly fitting for our department. If there's any questions or comments, I'll certainly try to answer them. Just a little bit of background. Our leadership team, which is for the police department, which is myself, Commander Barstead, and our sergeants, have reviewed everything like literally word by word, line by line, primarily last year, and reviewed them and made our recommendations and our adjustments, and then, as stated, went in front of the city attorney to review to make sure that, legally that the language and stuff was fitting. So if there's any questions or comments, I'll certainly try to address them.
Thank you. I did read through it, and I just, it's incredible to see all of the different things that are covered in there. And it's just, you think about some of the different scenarios that you guys have to work through and be a part of. And it just makes me really appreciate more what you guys do every day. So it just is a comment. So thank you.
Just one out of curiosity for the chief, our canine policy here, which was very interesting, was that always in the policy, that in-depth?
No,
Just curious.
This one got a lot more detail.
Okay, but yeah, very good, very detailed.
The former canine policy was more kind of like what our contractual LALS contract was, and it expanded a little bit on that. But this one definitely had an overhaul.
I'll motion to approve the updated New Ulm Police Department policies providing framework and guidance for the New Ulm police officers' response to calls for service and general personal conduct, both on and off duty, effective after formal approval.
Second.
We do have a motion and a second. Any additional discussion? Those in favor signal by saying aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? That motion's carried. Thank you, Chief. Item number 5.11, Police Department donations.
I'll make the motion to offer the resolution, waive the reading, and accept monetary donation of $250 from the Brown County Ag Society to support National Night Out on July 25th, 2022, and future NNO events.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any additional discussion? Director Jorgensen, please call the roll.
Counselor Mack?
Yes.
Counselor Christian?
Yes.
Counselor Warmka?
Yes.
And President Becker?
Yes, that motion is carried. At this time, we will return to item number 4.3, the new zoning ordinance.
So should I just receive and order filed and then we go home?
Dave Schumberg, Community Development Director. Madam President, members of the City Council. When I was in college, I had a roommate who always said that in order to get to sleep, he would read Greek mythology. For me, it's reading zoning ordinances. So, so the action that we're looking at the council to take tonight is to receive and order file the report that I'm going to go through with you, and then to direct the city attorney to prepare an ordinance adopting the new zoning ordinance. Obviously, you would also have the option of continuing the review of the document if you should so choose. Planning Commission unanimously recommended approval of the ordinance at its December 30th, 2021 meeting. You received that particular ordinance at your January 4th meeting, and at that time, you directed staff to prepare a report identifying the changes between the existing and the new ordinance. And so with this request for council action form, you do have a copy of a report. One of the things that has been a challenge in doing this type of comparison is that the new ordinance is substantially different from the old. And so if we had identified every change, we'd still be working on the report, and it'd be probably thicker than the zoning ordinance is. So for that reason, we're going to give you a summary tonight and then respond to any questions that you might have. I might note that the Planning Commission will be holding a public hearing on a new zoning map, and that public hearing will be conducted at their January 27th meeting. And if the commission recommends approval, then that new zoning map will get folded into the new zoning ordinance. And if you look in Chapter 3, there's a specific provision there for that to take place. As mentioned at your last meeting, city staff, city attorney, assistant city attorney should be authorized again to make necessary correction and amendments to the new zoning ordinance, since we are reviewing it and we're coming across things that require change. So we have a report that we would like to provide on the ordinance, and I would like to note on the cover page to the left-hand side is a rendition of our 1858 zoning map, or not zoning map, but plat. That's our town plat. And it's actually a very unique document, and it's something that we really don't take much pride in, but we really should. Probably one of the few communities in the state of Minnesota that has a document like that was prepared at that time. Then to the right is our current zoning map that we have. Okay, all this technical stuff. Okay. So our current zoning ordinance is Chapter 9, Land Use Regulations. There are 26 sections in that chapter. A majority of the document was adopted in October of 1968. There are portions of the text, some of the standards, the structure have remained unchanged since that time. Although there have been a limited number of amendments and additions. The new zoning ordinance utilizes a new format to improve readability of the document. There's a greater emphasis on visual aids to convey the meaning of the different standards. And there are a total of 13 sections in the new ordinance. And the contents of the new zoning ordinance have been reordered. And by that, I mean, in the old zoning ordinance, the definitions were the first item. In the new zoning ordinance, the definitions are the last item. In the old zoning ordinance, the list of zoning districts was close to the front. In the new one, it's more in the middle. So it was reordered in that particular manner. Okay, going to chapters 1. We refer to that as general provisions. And I'm going to start each chapter by saying whether it's something that's currently in the zoning ordinance or it's not. So general provisions is something that's not found in our current zoning ordinance. And what they are items, they're overriding rules that apply to all land uses and parcels. And it includes guidance as to the interpretation of the ordinance and its relationship to other laws. This is a fairly short section, something that you find in the zoning ordinances that are being adopted by communities in the recent past. Chapter 2 is titled Application Reviews and Procedures. And I think the whole chapter could kind of be summed up in one phrase, and that is it identifies who does what and when they do it. And that's really what it is. The content of this particular chapter is found in our current ordinance, and it's found in other city code locations. I'd like to note that in this particular section, we state that the Building Safety Department is considered to be part of the Community Development Department. The reason we did that is that we didn't want to have to continually identify both departments as having jurisdiction with particular items. So we just said building safety is part of community development for purposes of this document. Just makes things easier. This particular section identifies general review and decision-making processes, and that's found in Table 2.1, which hopefully will help people understand the approval process. And then we get into review procedures, and this has more to do with administrative requirements and how it applies when people request different land use approvals. And then that follows is a more specific review schedules and procedures when someone is making a specific request. For example, you're requesting a conditional use permit. You can go to the section in Chapter 2. You can start at the beginning of that process, and you can follow it all the way down to the end. So hopefully, if someone wants to know what's involved, it's listed all there. Now, what happens is there's some repetition as you go through the different approval processes. You know, some of the things we do for variances are the same as some of the things we do for conditional use permits, are the same that we do for interim use permits. So there is some additional content there, and it's, but we just thought it made it easier for people to understand. Chapters 3 identifies the zoning district, and this information is found in our current ordinance. What it does is it provides for the adoption of the zoning map, as we talked about before. It establishes the location of zoning district boundaries. For example, the middle of the street is normally the location of a zoning district boundary. But what happens if you got a river? What happens if you have a railroad? So it tries to identify in all of those different kind of situations where that zoning boundary should be. And then it establishes our new, what we're calling base zoning districts, and then our overlay zoning districts, and we'll get into that a little bit later. Chapter 4 is residential zoning districts. This information is similar to what we currently have in our code. It's presented in a different format, utilizes tables and different visual aids. Current ordinance has 3 residential districts. The new ordinance has 8. So that's a substantial difference. But that's really not true that there are 8 new districts. What we're actually doing is right now in our R1 zone, we have really 2 sub-districts. One is for the gridiron section of town, and the other is for the non-gridiron section of town. And so rather than putting that in one district and requiring someone to look through that particular section, we separated them out and said, okay, R1 Gridiron is over here, R1, newer construction is over here. The same thing applies to the R2 district and the another district that is kind of folded into the R3 zone is a mobile home, manufactured housing park. So we took that out of the R3 and put that in its own district, which is very common in most zoning districts. And in addition, in the residential district, there's a use table, and then there's a listing of standards that's applicable to residential districts. And I should note that the same things can be said for the commercial and for the industrial districts as well. So the commercial districts, same information that we have in our current code. Let's see, we utilize the same format as we found in the residential, with the residential districts. Currently, we have 3 commercial zoning districts. New ordinance has 4. The 2 districts that we're changing a little bit, the B1 district stays the same. Our downtown district stays the same. But the B2 district, which is called the Service Business District, was modified to allow a greater mix of retail service and limited industrial uses. And that's just something that we have seen over the past 20 years in our B2 zone. And then the B3 becomes, is called a Community Commercial District. And that's intended to be kind of our retail district. And so the Menards, the Walmarts, the Hy-Vees, that's the kind of district they would be in. And the intent was just to have it be a retail area. Chapter 6 is industrial zoning districts. Same information as in our current ordinance. Currently, we have 2 industrial districts. The new ordinance would have 3. The I1 and I2 districts remain the same as in our current code. We are adding a new I3, and the new I3 is basically for storage building and small service businesses. And we currently have a situation where a lot of our we use I2 zoning for a lot of storage buildings, especially along the railroad tracks, and right across the street from them are residential areas. And I2 allows any industrial use that the city permits. And it really didn't seem like that's the kind of proximity that we would, and type of land use that we'd want to encourage in those kind of locations. So we thought going with an I3, which basically says it's for storage buildings, and then reduces the number of other uses that can take place there, would be a benefit to those residential properties. Okay, 7 and 8. Chapter 7, most of this is new to the zoning ordinance. There are a total of 8 districts. The one that we retained from our current ordinance is the AOS. It's called Agricultural Open Space. Formerly, it was called R-A, which is a residential agricultural district. Those are pretty much the same. The new districts, we have 3 new institutional districts. And so we've got an education district, we have a medical district, and then we have just an other district, and that's for other potential land uses. The idea there is that a lot of our educational, medical, they are on a fairly wide amount of property, which consists of multiple lots or outlots. And technically, when you look at development that takes place on those parcels, we should be looking at each of those property lines, and we should be requiring setbacks from those property lines. And so what happens, it would require multiple variances if we were doing this correctly. And so what we decided to do after looking at what other communities were doing is establishing a larger district and then just have setbacks from the exterior property line. And then basically what takes place within that area would more so be regulated by building code requirements. So it just seemed a simpler way to deal with larger parcels of property. And so I think the education districts were looking at both high school, we're looking at actually elementary school in one case. We have a college, which would apply. The medical is pretty obvious. Other institutions, maybe the diocese would be a good location for this designation. There may be other institutional uses that would also qualify, that would be able to look at. Going on with other special purpose districts, we have the CM district, which is commercial manufacturing. This is a district for Shell's Brewery. When you look at Shell's Brewery, you've got commercial uses, you got industrial uses. At one time, you had a residential use. You still could have a residential use out there. And the property was zoned RA, which really didn't fit anything that was taking place there. And so this is an attempt to put this into its own district because it is a rather unique piece of property. And we thought, again, it would be the best way to deal with it. A similar situation we had with, we're calling a mixed use. We got two districts there. One is for Emerson Union, where we got housing right next door to a theater operation. And so we're going to kind of have them be their own district. And then there's a mixed use Turner, where we've got restaurant with a gym, with event center, kind of some different uses there. Normally something like that you might put into a B2 or a B3 district, but that's surrounded by residences on three sides, and that's really not a good compatible mix. So we thought, let's just give them their own district. And then finally, we have a planned unit development district, and this is for projects, normally larger projects, in which you discuss with the developer that maybe the developer is looking for certain kinds of variances or certain kind of exceptions on their part to do their project. And in turn, the city is looking for something from the developer for this development to take place that benefits the city as well. So it's kind of a negotiation that takes place with a planned unit development. And all of that gets eventually funneled through the city council for approval. Chapter 8 takes us to overlay zoning districts. We currently do not have any overlay zoning districts. It is something that is common to most zoning ordinance. We're proposing 3 such districts. One would be heritage preservation, one would be floodplain, and the other would be bluff protection. And we currently have those kind of provisions in our zoning ordinance. And so what we're doing is we're kind of taking them from being separate just sections, and we're calling them overlay districts, because in effect what they do is they are applied on top of the existing zoning of a piece of property. So for example, if a property is designated as being a historic district, you know, we take that and we apply it to the property, and its underlying zoning might be residential, it could be business or commercial. So it's an easier way to track their locations because it becomes part of the zoning map. The floodplain provisions, we're just going to add one page to the zoning ordinance saying that the floodplain is an overlay district. Otherwise, the floodplain, which is located in Chapter 12, is just going to stay in as designated as Chapter 12. So we're not making any changes to any of these requirements. We're just we're giving them a different designation. Going on to Chapter 9. Our current zoning ordinance includes this type of information, but it's in different locations. This is, as is indicated by the title, we're talking about uses. So they could be permitted uses, it could be conditional uses, it could be interim uses. And then we have underneath that title, use-specific, accessory, and temporary uses. Now, we currently have use-specific and accessory uses. They're part of our code. What we have in the new ordinance is much more detailed. Temporary uses is something new, so we're adding this. That's something you may want to take a look at. Moving on to Chapter 10, Development Standards. This is by far our largest chapter. We have 10 different development standards. 3 of the standards are new. Those standards are wind energy conversion systems, telecommunication towers and antennas, and exterior lighting. Again, these are provisions that are found in most zoning ordinances these days. We also have what I'll call 7 carryover standards. That means that we already have language in our code with reference to them. Some we kept the same. I would say a majority of them are larger and there's more content than we currently have. And those are landscaping and screening, fencing and walls, signs, parking, off-street loading, solar, and general regulations. Chapter 11 is nonconformities. There are 2 pages in our existing zoning ordinance on this subject. The new zoning ordinance has 8 pages, but the content is similar to the old ordinance. And this basically provides for the regulation of non-conforming uses, whether it be buildings, structures, site improvements, lots, those types of things. And then you can have conditions and requirements under which they operate and are maintained. Chapter 12 is enforcement. This is a half page in our current zoning ordinance. New ordinance has 4 pages. Again, it's similar content. And it just established the procedures through which the city enforces our zoning ordinance. Chapter 13, rules and definitions. The current ordinance has rules and definitions that are found throughout the zoning document. Rules basically pertain to measurement types of things or locational types of items. And so there's a number of pictures and we identify locations that way. And this is something that, again, applies to all land uses or structures. And the other item then is definitions. And again, that's simply the interpretation of words and terms. And it's amazing how often when issues come up, ultimately you get back to definitions and what does that word mean. So it's an important part of the document. Currently, we have 121 definitions. The new ordinance has 29 rules and 330 definitions. One of the things that we did is we came up with a definition for every land use that's identified in the document. We thought that that was important. And again, the number is really not unusual when you look at, it's kind of standard for what you would find in other community ordinances. So that is a very quick summary of the document. And if you have any questions, be pleased to try to answer them. Mr. Nisley and Mr. Zabel are also here. They have been party to this document, and they should be able to help in answering anything as well.
Just a comment. I had a whole bunch of questions for this evening. I would have tied us up for probably 2-3 hours. Okay, but now I'm going to back up. We're going to accept this tonight. We've added these zoning districts, correct? We're now adding in the residential, the I, the B. Instead of me asking all those questions, be able to take this manual here when I have that map in front of me, and is there a rough draft? I know they're going to meet on it. A rough draft, exactly where these are, where they're going to do the...
You are welcome to attend the meeting tomorrow night, 4 o'clock, down at the PUC. And
I have to miss fishing again? Oh, is that...
And that's when we're going to display the map and talk about it, and the commission is going to have, the opportunity to make changes, comment on it. Yeah. So you're welcome.
In reading through this thing, page for page, the new zoning ordinances, the biggest thing that I'm catching in my mind is it simplifying some of those variances and whatnot that council has seen for the last 10, 15, 20 years? I hope it does, because otherwise I won't support it.
Well, obviously, that's what the intent is.
Right.
We have a pretty good idea of what the variances are that, we tend to see over and over again.
Right.
And so we have attempted to address some of that. But I don't think we're going to eliminate variances. There's still going to be some of those.
Well, I agree there always will be some, but the ones that are so redundant to council, like, I don't know in the R2 and R1 on top of the hill, Dave, you know what I'm talking about. We always run these people through the mill from the 69 ordinance back to Councilor Fleischman's days. Change this so it simplifies it. That's kind of what I want to see, but you said there is adding these different adding a next residential one. It's hard to comment on until I see that map.
Yeah.
Where it's going to be.
Yeah, and we're also going to be making some text changes as well that will impact that. And we'll talk to the commission about that tomorrow.
So I might hold off with those and attend that meeting and look at that map, how it affects this part. All right.
I would also note, that there's going to be a first consideration and a second consideration. So, if things come up, there's still opportunity for discussion and for change. So, we're just starting the approval process now.
So I may wait. Council's off the hook tonight. I may wait with all my highlights until I see that map. All right.
Well, if you have items that you want to talk about, you're also very welcome to come in and meet with staff, and we can go over those things as well.
And I would extend that to any counselor. If you do have questions, as you're reading through this, fire them off to myself or even Dave or John Nisley. We, start the research, get you the answers, and then we can have that dialogue before we get to, the final consideration.
The good news I want to compliment staff on, we talked about it for years, I like the diagrams. Those are easy for people to look at and see. Instead of trying to explain it to them, they can see a picture, okay, now I know what you're talking about. That part I do like in the new manual.
Thank you.
Some of the other parts, Dave, I don't like.
We can talk about it.
Yep.
I would also note that if any other counselors wish to attend the meeting tomorrow night, that you certainly are welcome.
Thank you. No, very good, very expansive of what it was. And any time that you're going, decades between updates, there's going to be a lot of things. And it looks like everyone involved took a lot of time to really consider, how our city's changed. And I'm looking forward to seeing it as we continue to progress. I'll be with Dave. I probably will have some questions as well. But I thought this was well presented tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we just need a motion to receive and order it filed?
Correct.
So move.
Okay. So we have a motion to receive and order filed a report on the new zoning ordinance of the city of New Ulm, Minnesota, and direct the city attorney to prepare an ordinance adopting the new zoning ordinance from Councilor Christian.
Second.
Oh, second. Thank you. Any additional discussion? Those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That motion's carried. And with no additional business, this meeting is adjourned. We will move into a work session in just a couple of minutes. Thank you.
Quick. Make it quick.